can do it till 45, 50, but you still love it, enjoy it, 100% like you start that thing.
It didn't come with a teaser, no posters, no hype machine winding up in the background. Just a silent drop. A raw 30-second training video of Manny Pacquiao posted without fanfare. No cinematic angles, no dramatic edits, just pure noise. Gloves cracking pads, shoes squeaking across the canvas, and the unmistakable rhythm of a legend still dancing with time. Within minutes, the world was watching. Not just fans, but fighters, trainers, analysts, TikTokers, even people who had stopped following boxing years ago. They hit play, then replay, then paused, stunned, because what they saw didn't look like nostalgia. It didn't even look like a workout. It looked like hunger. Pacquiao wasn't easing through some ceremonial session. He was ripping through combinations, crisp double jabs, left hooks that curved like whips, footwork that spun him into clean pivots. Every movement screamed sharpness, precision, and intent. The kind of form that makes even elite fighters stop scrolling.
Goes to the flurry again. Flurry again. See up. Go to the flurry.
By the end of the day, the video had spread across continents, uploaded to YouTube, broken down by analysts, shared in boxing forums, and posted by sports pages that usually only cover trending NBA takes. It wasn't even about whether Manny was coming back. It was about what we had just witnessed. And the silence was deafening, because amidst the thousands of fire emojis and jaw-dropped reactions, one name was glaringly absent: Canelo Álvarez. Yet his silence spoke louder than the cheers, because sometimes, when greatness watches greatness, the most honest reaction is the one that doesn't need to be spoken. There's flashy training, and then there's real training. Pacquiao dropped wasn't some vanity workout or a retired legend going through the motions. It was tight, focused, and violent in its precision. He wasn't shadowboxing nostalgia, he was assaulting the pads like there was a title on the line. It started simple. 1-2, move, then a double jab, pivot, body hook. Every combination snapped like it was meant to end a round. His feet never stopped talking, small, deliberate shuffles creating space where none existed. The rhythm didn't slow, the arms didn't sag, and his eyes stayed laser-locked, like a man solving a puzzle at full speed. And here's what blew people away. The tempo wasn't just sharp for his age, it was elite, period. Speed that rivals fighters half his age, timing that looks built for another run, even if that's not the plan. The comments weren't filled with, "Remember when?" They were filled with, "If he wanted to." That's what happens when a fighter doesn't just stay in shape, but stays in form. Like he never left the gym. Like his body refuses to age the way everyone else's does. Boxing. YouTubers jumped on it. Analysts started comparing footage. And fans began asking, if Pacquiao's not coming back, then what exactly is he getting ready for? Because it wasn't just a tune-up. It wasn't legacy flexing. It was obsession disguised as routine. A 46-year-old man training like the clock never started ticking. There are champions, and then there's Manny Pacquiao. When most fighters retire, they drift into silence. They vanish into luxury, slow down, and eventually become memories. Fans move on, the gloves go into glass cases, and the hunger fades. But with Manny, something's always been different. Even in silence, he doesn't disappear. He lingers, not just in old highlight reels, but in the way fans still look at him like he might lace up again tomorrow. Why? Because Pacquiao never really acted like he left. He still trains, still spars, still carries that same grin and storm in his step. When you see a video of him working the mitts, it doesn't feel like a nostalgia hit. It feels like unfinished business. Pacquiao's legend isn't just about belts and knockouts. It's about that deep, almost irrational love for the work. That refusal to slow down in a sport where ego collapses careers and pride ends legends. Manny kept his feet on the ground and trained like a rookie even when he was a king. That's why this new video hits so hard. Not because it's surprising, but because it's familiar. You're watching a man who refuses to betray the discipline that made him. It's like his body has been conditioned for war so long, it doesn't know peace. You don't see a 46-year-old man trying to stay relevant. You see a fighter still in love with the rhythm of hard breathing, the sting of leather, the obsession with doing it just a little better than yesterday. Fans didn't just react to the video because it was fast. They reacted because it was real, honest, unfiltered, a moment of truth in a world of promo gimmicks and edited hype reels. And in that moment, the world remembered what greatness actually looks like when no one's watching. There was no comment, no emoji, no repost, no interview drop. Canelo Álvarez didn't publicly say a single word about Manny Pacquiao's training video, and yet somehow his name still came up in every conversation. That's what happens when two giants live in the same orbit. When one legend stirs, the world checks the other's pulse. Because in boxing, silence from a peer isn't just absence. It's space being felt. Pacquiao didn't call Canelo out, didn't tag him, didn't name drop him. But when you post a training video like that in the middle of a fight drought, with half the boxing world waiting for something real to latch onto, every current champ gets put under the microscope. Especially the biggest one. It wasn't shade. It wasn't comparison. It was energy. Canelo is the face of modern boxing. Active, accomplished, powerful. Pacquiao is the face of an era that refuses to fade. And when Manny shows up like that, shredded, sharp, fire still in his bones, it doesn't take a quote to send a message. It's a silent challenge, not in rivalry, but in example. In a sport where some fighters show up soft between fights, where training clips are overproduced and hollow, Manny's raw display felt different. And suddenly everyone started comparing again. Not punch for punch, not record for record, but spirit for spirit. That's why Canelo's name kept rising. Because whether or not he saw the video, the fans saw him in it. They asked, could Canelo do that at 46? Would he still want to? Who else at that level still trains like it's day one? And here's the thing. There's no disrespect in that. If anything, it's admiration. It's about how Pacquiao makes everyone, even the current kings, look inward. Not to doubt themselves, but to remember why they started. Because when a man like Pacquiao posts 30 seconds of him destroying myths, the whole sport feels it. There's no pay-per-view on the horizon, no camp, no countdown. Manny Pacquiao isn't building toward a return, at least not officially. But you wouldn't know it from the way he trains. The urgency, the sharpness, the absolute refusal to go through the motions. None of it says retired. So why does he still train like he's chasing a belt? The answer isn't complicated. It's just rare. Manny isn't trying to impress anyone anymore. He doesn't need the spotlight, doesn't need the money, doesn't even need validation. He's already done what few fighters have, conquered 8 weight classes, reigned for 2 decades, and exited with his name etched in every hall of fame imaginable. What he does need, what he's always needed, is motion, rhythm, the sound of the gym, the hum of leather cracking into pads.
Kami-kami lang din naman. Hindi naman. Kung gusto nilang kumiti, hawak ng kasama din natin.
For Manny, training was never just a job. It was identity, escape, survival. And now, in a life filled with diplomacy, politics, and fame, the ring remains the only place that makes perfect sense. It's the one place with no script, no handlers, no noise, just focus, just fight. That's why he still runs hills before sunrise, why his shadowboxing still has bite, why he pushes his body like the next opponent is waiting just outside the gym. Because Pacquiao doesn't train to come back, he trains because leaving the work behind would feel like betrayal. Not to the sport, but to the version of himself who never gave up. And that's what makes his workouts hit harder than most actual fight promos. They remind you that greatness isn't made under lights. It's built in sweat, in silence, when nobody's watching. This wasn't the first time a boxer posted training footage. Fight fans see it weekly. Most clips are hyper-edited reels with heavy bag punishment under neon lights, auto-tuned grunts, maybe a shirtless mirror flex at the end. That's the era now. Training montages more about branding than boxing, image over effort, vibes over victory. But Manny Pacquiao's clip wasn't that. No slow zooms, no sponsor logos, no posturing. Just a man in his mid-40s, wearing plain shorts, throwing combinations like time owed him a favor. And it shook people. Because it wasn't about a comeback, not really. If he wanted that, he'd make it known. Manny's never been shy about announcing a fight. This was something purer, a moment that made the boxing world sit up, blink twice, and ask, is he really still doing this? Like this? The contrast was striking. In an age where everyone's selling something, Pacquiao looked like the only one still building something. His legacy, his discipline, his peace. Retired fighters spoke up too. Tweets and interviews surfaced where ex-champions admitted they couldn't replicate that tempo even in their prime. Not because they didn't train, but because they'd let go. They'd moved on. Pacquiao? He never let go. He just shifted gears. It reminded people what training really means when it isn't tied to a paycheck, when it isn't performative, when the cameras are off and the gloves still go on. It was the kind of discipline that hurts, that humbles, that leaves you in the ring asking yourself why you're even there, and answering by throwing another combo anyway. That's why the footage hit differently, especially for young fighters. For every kid chasing clout on TikTok with 4-punch edits, Pacquiao's clip was a blueprint of what real hunger looks like when no one's watching. It wasn't aesthetic, it was truth. A quiet reminder that this sport isn't about what you post, it's about what you endure. Pacquiao's training wasn't nostalgic, it was convicting. It made people reevaluate their excuses, their tempo, their version of hard work. Because if a 46-year-old legend with nothing left to prove is still pushing like this, what's your excuse? That's what made it go viral. Not because he looked fast, but because he made people feel slow. This wasn't a fighter teasing a return. This was a man refusing to let his discipline age with his body. And suddenly, in 30 seconds of sweat and silence, Pacquiao gave the world something it didn't know it was missing. A definition of greatness that doesn't depend on spotlights or opponents. Just effort, every day, no matter who's watching. No comeback needed. When the clip of Manny Pacquiao hit the internet, it wasn't just the veterans who felt it. It was the kids, the young guns, the new generation of fighters scrolling their feeds between sparring sessions, suddenly frozen by a 46-year-old man outworking half the sport. And for them, it wasn't just awe, it was instruction. In an era where highlight reels are staged, where training montages come with drone shots and music drops, Pacquiao's 30 seconds of raw, unfiltered work said more than any speech ever could. No flexing, no posing, just fire, just movement, just purpose. It was a reminder of what this game used to be, and what it's supposed to stay. There's something powerful about seeing someone who's already done it all, still act like he's never done enough. For young fighters trying to build their names, it breaks the myth that hunger fades with success. It shows them that the true ones, the great ones, don't chase belts, they chase better. And in a sport as brutal and isolating as boxing, that mindset matters more than technique, more than speed. It's the reason Pacquiao was never just fast, he was relentless. The reason he didn't just win, he wore people down with will. So when young fighters watched him move like that, they weren't just witnessing a moment, they were inheriting a standard. You want to be elite? You don't wait for camp. You don't train for likes. You train because greatness isn't a peak, it's a pattern. And no matter how many belts you win, if your hunger can't keep up with a 46-year-old legend who has nothing left to prove, maybe you're not ready for the next level. There was no quote, no caption, no grand declaration. Just a short, breathless training clip uploaded without fanfare. And yet, in those few seconds, Manny Pacquiao sent a louder message than any press conference ever could. This wasn't about a comeback. This wasn't about going viral. This was about legacy in motion. Because legacy isn't what's written in articles or remembered in montages. It's not the belts on your shelf or the names on your resume. Legacy is what you still do when nobody's watching, when no one's asking you to, when there's nothing left to gain. And for Manny, that means showing up, lacing up, and pushing like it's still 2009 and he's preparing to take someone's head off at the MGM Grand. That's what defines him. Not just what he did when he was young and climbing, but what he still does when he has every excuse to slow down. So guys, subscribe to my channel for more updates.